Good morning. Welcome to SJU. It is Thursday. I am Danielle Radford. Welcome. Hi. Nice to see you all. I have got with me Roxy Striar.
Yeah, on a Thursday, we're shaking it up.
Making it crazy. I have got Dan Murrell.
I'm on this side of the table. We're really shaking it up.
Oh, yeah.
Anything can happen today in SJU. It is exciting. And we have with us making her SJU debut.
Yeah, so that's also new, I guess. It's to keep the theme.
Keeping the theme going. We've got Maggie Fish, who you might know formerly from Cracked. Also some video essays that you do.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Thank you for coming.
Of course. It's really
I just clapped for you over here, but JT's told me I can't clap too loud next to the mic anymore, so just so you know, this is
You
what
got
I'm
chastised
doing.
about the loud clapping.
Was that good, JT? Yeah, I'm okay. Okay.
Thumbs up.
I got a thumbs up from JT.
The biggest sign of approval you can get on SJU is this.
Yeah.
Or sometimes he'll give like a happy cheer if we mention something he really likes.
The shout from the booth, it's
Yes.
my favorite.
The shout from the booth makes me happy. Hopefully we'll get a couple shouts today. We've got some great topics we're talking about. We're going to talk about the aftermath of the Dark Phoenix, everything that went down with that. We're going to be talking about the Dr. Sleep trailer, which looked very interesting and cool. And then we're going to be talking about the Fast and Furious animated series trailer. You know, I'm very psyched to get into that. But first, Dark Phoenix. This is via THR. So after the opening weekend of Dark Phoenix, the story of its struggles and moving parts has started to trickle out into the public. As we know, there were a lot of issues and different problems that happened with the production of this. Shooting began at the end of June 2017. It wrapped in October. They had to go back and do reshoots, partially because, you know, people said there were too many similarities to Captain Marvel. Even though they did reshoots, but...
I just, what was the similarity that it was a start of what? I don't know. What?
No, I think it's about the villains more, and I think that there was also similarities to other superhero movies. I don't think we're doing spoilers yet, but the opening scene was very similar to another superhero movie we've seen recently.
And they've done Dark Phoenix, so it's also similar to the Dark Phoenix movie
very
that they
similar
made
to
before.
other Dark Phoenix movies.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, and one of the things, one of the similarities, apparently the character of Jessica Chastain, and I feel like this isn't a spoiler, was originally supposed to be a Skrull. And so I can see how that could be an issue, especially to have two Skrull movies in one summer. That does completely make sense. And so, you know, apparently the original ending was going to be closer to Civil War, and there were just all kinds of problems. Now people are starting to air out the dirty laundry of the Dark Phoenix, which is a little weird. How do you feel about that, Dan?
It's like I mentioned this on charting. Failure is an orphan. So if this were a success, everybody would be clamoring to explain how and why they themselves were responsible for the success. But in failure now, everybody's saying oh, but here's why, and it wasn't me.
Starbucks cup. It wasn't me.
Exactly.
I don't drink. I drink tea.
It wasn't even Starbucks, so I hear. So I hear.
I also think that there's just a human instinct to spill the tea on a story like this because
Wow, Dan Murrell just said spill the tea.
people know that there's
Mark it
some
down.
juicy goss behind this, and
It's that hot goss.
It's that hot goss, and I think that people are just ready to spill it.
I am negatively rubbing off on you, and it makes me so happy. I'm so excited.
I do agree with what you're saying, but I feel like most people who are working on this kind of sense the failure coming, so they detach themselves from it early on. If you look back at some critics' tweets, I think it was like Jeff Snyder, El Mayimbe, there were people who for the last year and a half have been tweeting, not naming this movie by name, but now that I've been putting the pieces together, being like, uh-oh, here there's this disaster on set, uh-oh, here this isn't going very well. And I think it's been leaking for a long time. And now that it finally came out, people are putting the pieces together that this was the movie that critics were talking about, or people with behind-the-scenes information.
Just kind of subtweeting.
Yeah.
Although that kind of stuff's come out about so many different, like Titanic was one that was just like the set reports from that movie were disastrous.
We didn't have Twitter at that time,
That's
so
true.
it was
There was no
different.
Twitter at that time.
And it's very on trend to talk about the behind the scenes and why my lipsticks have plastic in it and what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta fix that. You gotta go with organic, all natural.
There's also there's a
Dan.
lipstick thing that's happening online right now. There's a whole lipstick beauty guru drama. It's very interesting. So now we've gotten some more insights to what happened, especially things that are not quite rumor anymore, but have been solidified by the folks who are actually involved. Who here has seen the movie? We won't do too many spoilers.
I saw parts of it.
You saw parts. You saw parts of it.
Yeah, I won't say how or why.
Okay.
Oh my God, I
saw
need
parts
an
of it.
explanation though. Bizarre. Okay.
I feel like we got the explanation. I think it's in there. And so, what are your reactions to that, and how do you think that changes the way? Does it show up in the final product at all, or?
It did to me. It felt a little bit like Fantastic Four, another Simon Kinberg script, the Fanforstic, as I like to call it.
Fanforstic.
In that it's going along for a while, and then it hits a certain point where it's just like you start, much like Kate Mara's wig in Fantastic Four, where you could spot the reshoots. James McAvoy's bald cap. You could tell that there was a part of the movie where he shaved his head, and there was a part of the movie where he came back and he was wearing a bald cap. We know, we can tell these things. That's our superpower.
Yeah.
So you can see the line, and then the movie just sort of loses focus. It just sort of does this at a certain point, so you can kind of see. I could tell where they had tried to go back and Frankenstein it a little bit, and it just kind of was just, they're like, we just have to end it. It's just got to end. We have to. It has to end, and we got to do something. And here it is.
Yeah. I feel like the thing that came through to me was like Jennifer Lawrence as an actor on screen. I felt like she didn't want to be there, and I don't really blame her. But I think it came across a little bit.
I definitely, I think she's amazing. But
I love her.
I agree that I don't think this was the most effort she's put into a role.
Yeah.
I did not totally dislike this movie, just to be fair. I thought that there were parts that were more exciting, and I do think in a genre that has so many movies coming out right now, it's not exactly fair when you happen to be the one that comes out after, but you did have the idea before.
Yeah.
That's a bummer, that is.
Yeah.
But that is, movie making is not fair sometimes, so we have to roll with that. And I feel bad. I feel bad for the fans, the massive X-Men fans, the people who have been waiting for Dark Phoenix for so long as we've been building up to this. I don't think anybody I've talked to has been 100% satisfied with this movie, and that sucks.
Yeah, so do you think when you end on something like this, where for some people it did feel like it ended on a biff, do you think that kind of can affect the way you might feel about the franchise as a whole, or does it speak to the franchise as a whole?
They're going to do completely, I mean, with Marvel coming in, well, Marvel's always been involved. With Marvel Studios coming in and rebooting this, I don't think this honestly affects it at all.
If this had been a massive success, though, Dan, this movie had been incredible, do you think they would have tried to salvage some of the characters?
That's an interesting question. Honestly, I think that's a weird Elseworlds universe where if somehow this McAvoy led and Fassbender and Sophie Turner and everyone, if it were extraordinarily successful and good, I think that is a good question. But it's just...
It wasn't.
Yeah. It wasn't.
Like,
so
I can see. That's the part, like separating the art from the artist. Like I can do that with superhero. Like I love Superman. I haven't seen a good Superman movie in a while. So, but I still love him. I still love the X-Men.
Okay, so that doesn't affect that you're feeling on even this specific franchise, not just the X-Men, but this specific, the way that they've handled this since 2000 or whatever it was.
I feel like it's such a from the amount of movies they're making, it's like a mini Marvel universe that they've basically been pumping out movie after movie after movie, and to have flops, I feel like that was just inevitable.
it would have been interesting to see that the project that they've talked about, where Fox for a hot minute was going to do a Civil War type storyline with the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, who they had the rights to. That would have been intriguing.
Yeah, but it's interesting you mention Fantastic Four, though, Dan, because between X-Men and Fantastic Four, I just get so nervous. Like, for the future and for figuring out what to do with them, and in how many years we do start incorporating them. We cannot afford to have a bad Fantastic Four movie at this point. We just can't.
True.
It will I think they'll never try it again. If they do it and it sucks, I think that they just scrap it and they're like, okay, maybe TV show. We can't make this on big screen right now.
And there was was a lot of really high profile. That was another one where there were some problems on set and there were some issues with production. Production for movies, they're getting bigger and bigger and everything is getting more and more complex. They're doing multiple movies at once. You have things where there were complications where Gwyneth Paltrow apparently didn't know that she was in Spider-Man Homecoming.
It was pretty amazing.
Wow.
She was so floored by that. No, we weren't. We were not in that.
She was very insistent. It's very charming to watch. I wish I had those problems.
Yeah, I didn't understand why so many people were dragging her for that. Like, there were a lot of people that were treating her like she was a dummy. And it's like...
Well, she probably filmed it on set of Civil War for the Spider-Man. Like,
That's what Brie Larson came...
else, yeah.
Did you guys see Brie Larson came to her defense and was like, dude, I had no idea when I was filming some of my scenes which movies they were placing them in. I'd be on a green screen and I did not realize I was talking to the Avengers. Like, I had zero clue.
Because
So.
it's just a studio in Georgia. They're probably doing reshoots or shoots for 2 or 3 different movies at a time. I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow's in a movie, in a scene with Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau. It's like...
It makes sense. You think it was Iron Man.
You think it was Iron Man because it's like, you know, I mean, the Captain Marvel, they shot Brie Larson in Endgame before they shot all of Captain Marvel. It's like I'm totally I get, it's kind of like a haha funny thing, just like
funny.
how movies work. It's just like, what a dummy Gwyneth Paltrow didn't know what movie she was in. Like, she could have shot parts of 2 different movies that day. We don't know.
Yeah. She runs a massive company. She's got kids. She has a life. And she's said many, many times, this genre is not my fandom. I just like being a part of it.
Right.
So it makes perfect sense. I agree with you, Dan. It's rude that people are just dragging her right now. If anything, it was funny. Chuckle, move on.
It's a funny anecdote.
It's a really
That's
funny
what
anecdote.
happens now.
And to get to watch something like that happen live and not hear about it later on a talk show. It's like I was talking to Jon Favreau and didn't realize I was in Spider-Man. To actually get to watch that happen, that's kind of a treat for us. And so with, again, this growing trend of having these movies all filming at once and everyone on all of these green screens, does it seem like it can have some dysfunction? Obviously, it's got a little bit. Do you think that that can have a negative or a positive impact? Do you see that actually impacting the movies that this happens to?
You're talking about green screen specifically?
Not necessarily green screens, but just this thing of, you know, everything is so complex and there's always reshoots and people doing, you know, different movies in the same franchise at once.
Listen, I have been acting since I was 2 years old, but I am nowhere even close to being on the, like, I'm in awe of all these people. But I know when I'm shooting a scene and there's nobody standing across from me, or I'm talking to a mouse, but really it's a dot on the ground, it obviously affects you. Like, it obviously affects you. And then to take that plus the added factor of this world is massive, they're so secretive that you can't, as the actor, even know what's going on. So
Or what movie you're in, maybe.
What movie you're in, so you just have to pretend like you pick a direction based off the director and what you decide, and you go with it. But yes, Danielle, I definitely think it can affect these people's performances, which affects the entire movie, and I think that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, watching Ewan McGregor in the behind the scenes of Phantom of the Menace, and you can just see him getting irritated because, you know, George Lucas would be like, oh, just like, you know, say your line to that thing. And you can, under his breath, he's like mumbling, what, I don't know what I'm talking to. I don't know. Yeah. And, you know, he's like such a stage actor that... Yeah,
it's hard.
It's hard. It's hard.
And generally, you need to have somebody at the wheel who has a very clear vision, and not only has a clear vision, but can articulate that. And even talented directors, it's a really sad clip from the Hobbit movies, the new ones, of Ian McKellen, where they're trying to do the scene where he's at the table talking to all the dwarves. Yeah. And Fellowship, the way that they did it was forced perspective, so he could largely sit and talk to Ian Holm or Elijah Wood, whoever was at the table. You know, the eye line might be a little bit off, but there was somebody there. And the way that they had to do it with this, the way they did the CG in that movie was like, there was like sticks and lights, and then like the light, there would be like a voice would thing, and the thing would light up, and he'd have to look at the light, but the voice would be coming from somewhere else. And and it's all on green screen. And there's a scene where he sits there and he's like, on the verge of like crying, like an emotional thing, because it's just,
He's an actor.
He's an actor, and he thrives off of that energy. So I think anything, whether it's directing actors or knowing how to do a piece of a movie that's a reshoot or a different part of a movie, is you've got to have somebody somewhere that has a very big, clear vision that they can articulate to keep things from becoming all jumbled.
And that's why, we always laugh at those images of Josh Brolin in the suit and then Thanos' head is like right here. But it gives people something to look at. It gives you an eye line. You get to actually have an emotional connection in the scene. You're not just acting to a light. You're not just acting to stare over here and you don't quite know where over here is. If, you get to hear the inflection, you get to actually do some acting while you're staring at Thanos' cardboard head.
Yeah, I think also you don't always know what the other directors are doing with their movies. So in a universe like in the X-Men universe or the MCU or any of these things where you can guess in the movie you're directing, you can have a complete 360 understanding of it. But if there has to be something that affects another movie and you're like, well, this is the direction I'm going in, I'm hoping that they get that too. And there is communication on the best franchises, of course, but we've also seen in some of them there's a lack of communication. I think that's very evident in the most recent Star Wars movies that people are having problems with there not being communication between a clear direction. So you can have one person take something one way, one person take something another way, and the actors are just there trying to do their job on that one movie they're on, not thinking about, wait, okay, how does this play into the next 50 movies that this franchise is going to do?
Yeah.
Because they don't necessarily know about it. And so obviously this isn't, there's going to be, and there already is, a lot of postmortems and ragging on what happened on The Dark Phoenix. This is not the only movie that's had problems with production. There have been several that have had production problems. Some of them actually wound up working for the best. Some of them are just kind of funny anecdotes. Do any of you have any favorite ones that you really love? I think we've talked about it before, the Blade thing with Wesley Snipes, where if you haven't read the AV Club article, it is so funny. Patton Oswalt spills the tea and tells everything that happened on that set. According to Patton, Wesley Snipes did not leave his trailer. He stayed in there and smoked weed all day. He stayed in character as Blade, so if he would introduce himself to you, he'd say, hey, I'm Blade. He never took off his sunglasses. He almost choked David Goyer at one point, and then they stopped communicating completely, except that Wesley Snipes would communicate with him via Post-it note that would be signed from Blade. And that's one of my favorite stories of all time.
Love that.
Pretty awesome. I'm going to start doing that.
Just start sending things from
Blade. Yeah, signed Blade.
I have a least favorite one. I was not a fan of Jared Leto sending used condoms to Margot Robbie. I think that he was 2 years too soon, but I think that would have been a way different issue if that film had come out a couple years later, even a year later. That was, to me, I
disgusting.
mean, sending a rat, all that's fine, but you want to send magazines that are sticky and used condoms.
Like the Joker does.
Yeah. That famous story where the Joker...
That famous thing that the Joker does.
Oh, yeah. What issue is that?
It was
his calling
Detective
card,
Comics 527.
Yeah.
Don't you know that, Roxy?
520 never.
Fake nerd.
Yeah. Wow. I did not love that one. But you're right. It does happen all the time. I mean, we're now hearing a little bit more about Men in Black behind the scene problems as well. So seems to be anytime a movie does not critically do very well, all these things then start flowing out.
Yep.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite movie, Jaws. Vastly over budget, vastly over time. It was everything that should go wrong with a movie these days. Is written, rewritten. Literally, if Carl Gottlieb has a great book called The Jaws Log, where they talk about every day they would shoot, and then they would go and they would write the next day. They would write the next day scenes or rewrite it. They all were in a cabin, and obviously Robert Shaw helped write the Indianapolis speech. But I mean, literally the movie, they would sit and write the movie every day after they were done shooting, and then they would go, and a lot of times because this damn thing, the shark didn't work, and they had to go shoot stuff they didn't know. But I mean, that movie should have been, by all accounts, a disaster, and wasn't, thankfully. And there's a lot of movies that turned out the other way that were disastrous productions that turned out badly because it all comes down to passion, direction, vision, and if you're missing some of those things, then things can go wrong really quickly.
And the shark not working actually wound up helping the movie. And I think I've talked about this before. In Deep Blue Sea, in the commentary, the director says, in Jaws, you weren't able to see the shark. And in my movie, I wanted to make sure you could see the shark.
Which you did.
You definitely saw.
Mission accomplished. Yeah.
Accomplished. Do you have any production tales that you like?
Yeah, this one I just recently learned was Jim Henson when he was filming Dark Crystal. His first viewing of it, execs hated it because he had been doing the Muppet Show and was working on Fraggle Rock, and that's what they were expecting. Even though he tempered their expectations, was like, this is not my normal thing. They hated it. He ended up buying it back from the company and spent like. I don't even remember the number, but it was his own money. He bought back Dark Crystal so that he could release it under his own like guidance. And it still like it did fine. It didn't do great, but like at least I'm happy now, years later, that we had his like direct vision. Besides changing the Skeksis. Yeah. Besides giving them dialogue, but. Yeah, so I like, in the long run, I guess it turned out for the best. But still, I had no idea that there was so much like contention for releasing that film. Yeah.
That's I didn't know that either. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so this wraps up this segment. Once again, we are Fandom Entertainment. Thank you for coming. We're glad that you're here. Make sure to like and subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, so every time we put up something new and cool, you will get a chance to see it first. He's doing work. We're not even going to depend on
I
the
see
bell.
the bell on the floor. I was going to run to it, but I just felt like I was going to deck out a camera and JT was going to be pissed.
It's okay.
Ding.
We're going to get in all of our good bells later on Movie Fights today, so don't worry. You'll still get your bells. Also, so we've got something really cool. We've already done a soft launch of this, but we're going to be doing the official launch of our new series, Fandom Uncovered, and this one is Fandom Uncovered Twilight. Roth and our producer, Max, actually went to Forks to go to a Twilight convention, and they are talking about these people and their fandom and how much they love it. It's really nice to watch people
so
just,
cool.
they're just sincerely into stuff.
Yeah, that's so refreshing. I love that.
Even if you don't necessarily, if Twilight wasn't your thing, it's just always nice to get a peek into seeing people who are just really unabashedly into something. And so that is going to be getting its full public release next Tuesday, June 18th. We will be taking the day off from SJU that Tuesday, which is a week from today, or not today, which is on, sorry, we will be
To be fair, the script does say a week from
It
today.
does, but that is my bad. I should have seen that first. But yeah, so we will be taking that Tuesday off. Go watch it, share it with all of your friends. We're really, really proud of it, and we're very excited for it. Do we have any pictures from that we can show, JTE?
Thumbs down.
Thumbs down!
That's what you don't want to see. This is good.
This is good.
This is bad.
It's like Gladiator.
Well, we can all imagine in our mind, right? You've got crazy colored eyes, and then there's Roth, so we know what she looks like.
Well, and they did. They put some. They gave Roth a little bit of a vampire makeup and put in some eyes. So you're gonna get to see a lot of really cool
They had a
stuff.
real vampire weekend.
But
well, I'm not going to do better than that, so let's go on to
big thumbs down.
segment
No.
two. All right, so there was a new trailer for the Shining sequel, Dr. Sleep, which was based on the book. It is starring Ewan McGregor. Ewan McGregor is playing the adult version of Danny Torrance from The Shining. It's coming from the Haunting of Hill House creator, which is really exciting. He previously did the adaptation of Gerald's Game, which is a crazy book. I have not actually seen the movie, but I know the book is like, rah. So we've all gotten a chance to see this, right?
what's the book like?
Rah.
Just checking.
Look, it's a little, I don't necessarily know that I feel comfortable describing it on our PG-13-ish YouTube channel.
Word for me, for sure.
It is a little 50 Shades of Grey, but weird. So what was your reaction to the trailer? Because I know that y'all are really huge fans of The Shining. You're a really huge fan of The Shining.
I thought this trailer looked amazing. I think it took its time at the beginning, which I really appreciated. It let it breathe and us breathe, and then it started hitting us with the classics and everything we wanted to see. I could not be more excited for this movie, but it's still so far away. Like, November is many months, and entitled Millennial Roxy, I want it now. I thought it looked great.
Yeah.
It looks awesome.
I mean, the interviews and stuff that Mike Flanagan has given, coordinating with the release of this.
To our own Fandom Zone, Kim Taylor Foster. What up, Kim?
Yes,
What up, Kim?
thank you, Kim. But the idea of, this was Stephen King wrote this as a sequel to his own novel. This very heavily tying into the imagery, music, everything from the Kubrick movie. So I was surprised to hear, but having heard now that Stephen King sort of signed off on like, okay, it's tied into the Kubrick movie, which he famously did not like, but is an adaptation of his novel. But I did not expect them to lean so heavily, not into just imagery from The Shining, but imagery from the 1980 Kubrick Shining. I was very surprised by how much they leaned into that. How much the movie itself leans into it, who knows? It could just be, this is a great way to market a movie.
Surprised and happy, or surprised and disappointed?
Definitely not disappointed. Really, just surprised knowing that Stephen King is so tied into this that he would sign off on this being linked so closely to a movie that he did not feel was a very good representation of his work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels like a good step into like a nice ego direction for Stephen King to be like, all right, okay, fine. Everyone likes the movie.
You guys like it? You like that carpet? Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like also could have written a carpet in my book, but I just didn't, and I decided not to, and that was a choice. But okay.
I like that you started trying to do his voice at first, but then in your second one you gave it up and you're like,
No.
Bam, bam, bam.
yeah.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that Flanagan said, that they're trying to make sure that they honor both versions, because both versions are very important to people. The imagery from that is really iconic, especially again that carpet, the big flow of blood, which that scene, so many of the other scenes were recreated. The scene where the blood goes into the hallway, that they took directly from The Shining, which you kind of have to, because you can't recreate that.
No. People have memorized so much about that movie, every frame, that even if you recreate it digitally, people would know, like, no, the blood comes from that point in the elevator, not that point in the elevator. Like, good, nice try.
Well,
Nice
but there is this huge Shining fandom. I've got people in my life who are really, really into it. Sup, Kevin? So, do you think it's risky to be doing a sequel to this now, or does it just kind of feel like, yeah, that's what we do now? We make sequels to things people love.
Yeah. I saw you shake your head yes that it was risky. I agree. I think people have very tried and true beliefs about what they think The Shining means, and it means something different to everybody, but I think people are very hold that very dear to them. Like, to me it means this, to me it means that. And so the sequel can't possibly appease everyone.
I agree. I think every sequel's risky. The answer to whatever movie title you put in there, is this sequel risky? The answer is yes. It's always going to be because of that reason, but it is their right to try this.
Definitely. I'm glad they are. I'm glad they're trying.
And it's our right to either like it or not. But it is, I have seen some people online being like, it's stupid that they're touching this. They shouldn't be allowed to do this. That's crazy, because it's their prerogative. They are allowed to make this movie, and then we can feel about it how we want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that they're leaning heavily on this imagery for the marketing. My guess is that there's probably not a whole lot of direct tie-in as far as we're going to go back to the I don't think there's going to be like a Voldemort type duel in the lobby of the Overlook Hotel. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I think this is for marketing, and I get it. But I also think that Stephen King, I haven't read Dr. Sleep, but from what I know of it, it is tied into the psychology of what happened, but it's not like we're going back to the Overlook. I think we've probably seen a very healthy dose of how much they're going to be drawing from The Shining, and then it's going to be its own thing. That's my guess.
It's going to be about him kind of following that kid around, getting into more of the lore of how The Shining works. Yeah. Just really interesting. Last year's Ready Player One also saw a movie lovingly recreate sets and imagery from The Shining, which was great. What is it about this film that resonates so much and has these filmmakers like Steven Spielberg and Mike Flanagan wanting to pay direct homage to it?
It's one of the best films ever made. I love The Shining so much. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the perfect breaking down of a dysfunctional, terrible family with a terrible father, and the real psychological consequences that come from that. I think it's a very important film. I love it so much. I could cry.
I think it's always kind of hard to answer the question of why something holds up.
Right.
But this movie does. So I think that's why we continue to borrow from it. It was one of a kind at the time. It's been referred to or borrowed from or referenced in I mean, it's got to be like 100+ movies at this point. It's always being talked about. And I think it works as well today as it did then. But it's hard to kind of put my finger on why that is.
I think part of it's the iconography. We always joke about with movie fights and stuff, like using the word iconic a lot. But,
Is that Hal's word?
Yeah, Hal loves iconic. But it is literally iconic in the sense that, like, you know that music. Just that shot of the carpet, like you said, the carpet. You can look at almost any shot, a screen grab from The Shining, and almost anybody, not even necessarily a horror fan, just a movie fan, can tell you, oh, The Shining. I think that's part of it, is like it's just so easily, instantly recognizable.
It's a cultural touchstone, I
Yeah.
feel. Yeah, people just know what it is.
Plus the lore behind it, and all of the room to the room to 237, and the idea of just like the conspiracy theories associated with it.
This isn't just a movie that people are into because, I mean, it's amazing. It's a great movie. It looks amazing. This is a movie that people obsess about.
Yes.
They obsess about the way that it was made. They obsess about. So this moves beyond. It was a novel that someone was able to do a great adaptation of. It's also. There's so much lore behind it that's almost its own thing, separate from the movie.
It's fun to watch because movies aren't released as classics. Like they aren't. There's very few movies that come out and they're like, oh, that's a classic. That happens like 20 or 30 years afterward, and I think that's the fun thing with The Shining that we're seeing right now is it came out in 1980, and 30 plus years later, almost 40 now, it is becoming one of those movies that is just woven into the fabric of film. It's not just. When I was growing up, it was largely, here's Johnny, it was the moments from the movie. But now the movie itself, the music, the score, the visuals, shots from the movie, the making of it, the story behind it is now becoming this bedrock, one of the bedrock parts of just movies in general, and that's fun.
And culture, because I know long before I saw The Shining, because obviously there were parts of my life where I was a child, but long before I saw The Shining, when I finally saw it, all of a sudden all these things click where it's like, oh, I know this reference, I know this, I know that, I know that, because it's gone beyond, like you said, it's not just woven into movies, it's woven into culture. Do you think that do you feel like there's a lot of pressure on Ewan McGregor having to take on this role?
He's done it before. Pressureful roles. I think he's the guy for the job. So yes, I do think there's a lot of pressure, but my money's on him.
He walked out of the prequels fairly unscathed. People loved it. He took on Alec Guinness. He took on Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's a tough role to play. And I think it's a little easier in a way that he doesn't have the baggage of replicating a performance in the way that he did with Alec Guinness. So
Right.
I think there's more pressure on Mike Flanagan.
I think there's a lot of Oh yeah, and he has such a different filmmaking style, which I also really love and appreciate. So I think that'll be fun to see that with like the Shining kind of woven in. But at least from the trailer, it feels very different, which I think is good. I think probably.
Yeah. Differentiate, but still kind of harken back to what it was. So yeah, very excited, and hopefully it does not suck. So next, speaking of things that I really hope don't suck, please don't suck, please don't suck. We have got a Fast and Furious animated series teaser. I am so happy. I am incredibly elated. DreamWorks Animation has released a teaser trailer for 2 new animated series, including Fast and Furious Sky Racers. And so the synopsis for this, I am so excited to say this out loud, I can't handle it. Teenager Tony Toretto follows in the footsteps of his cousin Don when he and his friends are recruited by a government agency to infiltrate an elite racing league serving as a front for a nefarious crime organization bent on world domination. Oh my God, yes, put it into my veins. It's James Bond Jr. and I'm so into it.
James Bond Jr. Yeah.
I am so incredibly pumped for it. So what did you guys think of the trailer?
I think it looks great. I was just like, yeah, this makes sense.
There wasn't a whole lot to it.
Yeah, teaser.
It's like the Jurassic World thing. It's everything old is new again. The idea of just like, I'm going to take a movie and make a cartoon out of it. Like,
With teens.
With teens, yeah. Tony Toretto.
I love that so much.
Danielle, I'm worried about our friendship after this moment that comes out of my mouth. I don't care about this. I don't know why, but I don't. There's something about this that I'm like, I just don't know if this is for me. It sounds so goofy and.
Oh, it's not for you.
Yeah, I think it's for kids. It's the intended audience is kids, right?
Yeah, but I'm a kid. Yeah. I don't know.
True.
Like I was trying to get excited, especially I got Joe Starr's email this morning and he was saying that we're going to be talking about this and it was like 15 exclamation points, all of the smiley faces, like yeah. And I knew that you were amped too.
I love goofy stuff.
I want to
man.
get there.
I mean, I'm not generally enthusiastic about Fast and Furious stuff either.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I'm not gonna watch this. So
Yeah, of course
whatever.
not.
Maybe
You
kids will like
are.
it.
Oh,
Danielle,
I'm going to watch the crap out of it. I'm especially excited to see, there's this DreamWorks. I guess they're going to be doing some Netflix stuff, which is really exciting.
Yeah,
having this on Netflix is great. So, now Universal, they own DreamWorks. They're going to be leaning really heavy into animated series. Do you think that this is going to wind up working out for them with their deal with Netflix, or?
well, because they're doing Boss Baby, right? Is that DreamWorks?
I think so.
And then
Yeah.
and Universal's got Jurassic World going on also. So, and I mean, at this point, everyone's just trying to generate what content? How much content? We just need we
Yeah.
need one content, please.
They do.
I will take one content,
I would like
please.
one content. Yeah.
I don't know if it's specifically I guess it is DreamWorks, but Dino Trucks on Netflix is a great show. If no one's seen it, it's incredibly enjoyable. It is for children. I do need to say that, but it's about dinosaurs who are trucks. But it's great. It's well written.
Explain
it's very
that.
fun. It's dinosaurs but trucks.
There's not much more to it.
They're
Really-
Transformers, like they.
Kind of, yeah. So like, there's like little iguanas that are kind of like drill bits, and then there are like the T-Rex is a like big.
Oh, together
truck.
they make a truck.
No, they're trucks separately. They're separate. They're separate dinosaurs and also separate types of trucks.
Oh,
Great.
now I get
It's
it.
so good. It's well.
So why is it called Dino
characters.
Trucks?
Yeah, that's the
Okay, so
confusing
it's
part.
dinosaurs that are trucks. I bought a lot of merchandise from the Dino Truck series. But it's great, and it's DreamWorks back, or I think it was one of the first like DreamWorks Netflix shows. And I really like that. But again, that's an original IP. I think Steven Spielberg is like producing it, yada yada. So it's not like a reboot of a series, but I mean, I love that. I love that
Dino
show.
Trucks for the win, baby.
Dino Trucks, y'all. So obviously it's weird that they're doing this because the series starts with Coronas. We assume that these children are not going to be doing any Coronas. And we've talked about how, they've been adapting these things that are originally very much for adults as these kiddie versions. They did it with Beetlejuice. They've done it with other things. Is this going to be a winning strategy for them, or?
I prefer the Cobra Kai treatment where we go the other way. But obviously because of my age, that's why I prefer that. I prefer taking things that were kiddie when we were kiddies and now adulting them. But of course I do, because that's what I want to see. You know what I mean? So that's the treatment I like.
Cobra Kai is great. Like,
Yeah,
don't
so
even.
good.
I feel like we've talked about this a bunch of times on the show, but if you have not gotten into Cobra Kai, get into Cobra Kai.
It's worth getting YouTube Premium for. It is. And honestly, if you are feeling tapped with all of the streaming services you have to do, you could just get it for a week, binge it, let it go. Take it back when you need, because it's really expensive to have all of these services.
It's a lot, but well, this is where we're at. There's this is just kind of a sigh. Like, you can't. We know this is where we're at. Everyone's announcing new content. There's no. Get ready.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense in the sense that, like, in the way that it made sense for RoboCop to have an animated series, or Aliens, which is that you're not getting the kid dollar as is. So make a cartoon, and then you're going to get the kid dollar, and then you're going to convert them to a fan of the franchise when they're older. It's that in-between period that I always find out. Like, what about the kid who loves the Fast and the Furious Spy Racers show, and then goes to see whatever Fast and the Furious 12 movie, and there's the equivalent scene of Charlize Theron putting a gun to a baby's head,
Right.
like in the last Fast and the Furious movie.
that was
like,
woof.
that's maturing. That's a maturation right there.
Oh
And the
yeah.
whole time he's
I'm
like,
adult now.
he's like, where's Tony and all of his friends?
Tony Toretto.
Where's Tony Toretto?
Why isn't that my name?
Tony Toretto?
Yeah.
I'll
is a
start
good
calling
name.
you that if that's what you want.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all once again for joining us here on SJU. This is Dan Murrell. Nice to have you join us today, Maggie
you.
May
This was so
Fish. Where
lovely.
else can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter. It's just my name, Maggie May Fish, May with an E, not a Y. I don't know why. And then also my name on YouTube. You can find me there. Yeah.
Awesome, fantastic. And of course, as always, we have Tony Toretto.
You can find me everywhere at Tony Toretto. Doing the thing.
All right, so tomorrow will be Fan Friday, so check the community tab later today and post your questions. We have also got a movie fight.
Yes.
That will be very fun, and that will be a Movie Fights live.
Yes.
What are you fighting?
It
Do we
is
know?
it is the honest. This is part of the gauntlet. So
Part of the
I
gauntlet. We're still
survived
doing the Dan gauntlet.
last week. This week it is Honest Trailer Fights 3. It is myself. It is Joe Starr. It is Spencer J. Gilbert.
Dang.
It's
very
gonna be
exciting.
fun. And then the one we have planned for next week is gonna be insane. It's pretty crazy.
No spoilers,
No
but
spoilers. Yeah. Also, we have a review for Toy Story 4. That went live. I was live this morning. You can check that out now here on Fandom Entertainment.
fantastic. Look at all those really great things that you would get notifications for if you hit the bell. And so we will see you tomorrow. Don't forget to get in those Fan Friday questions. Bye.